Hello, I'm back again. Recently in Australia, state where I live, which is New South Wales, there will be a bill put towards Parliament, which is of actual great interest to me, because it is something I actually support. Previously in 2019 to 2020, other states have passed it, and now it is my state's turn to pass it. And that is euthanasia. The history of this in short is Australia, Australia essentially only recently allowed euthanasia amongst certain conditions recently in Victoria and other states, which leaves now only New South Wales. A little bit of history now. In the 1900s, euthanasia, or its other word, voluntary euthanasia and assisted suicide, was made illegal in all territories under federal law. Now that it's being rolled back, thankfully, I'll make my point clear as I go on. Okay, let's show some examples of what's going on here. This one. I have three things open here for a reason. Okay, let's start this one. This discusses some basic information to begin with. The other two I will go into because I can count it later in a minute. Almost 30 organizations and community groups from around the country have joined a public alliance to advocate for voluntary assisted dying laws ahead of the debate in Parliament this week. Independent Sydney MP Alex Greenwich, who introduced the bill to Parliament, says the alliance demonstrates that people from all walks of life support voluntary assisted dying reform. The alliance includes multiple branches of euthanasia advocacy groups, dying with dignity, lawyers, civil rights advocates, and several groups representing doctors, nurses, and other health workers. We have organizations representing thousands who support this important law reform. Dying with Dignity New South Wales President said, one thing to know here is euthanasia is necessary. Because if you ever had family who suffered unfairly or got a condition in which they cannot die peacefully or will die a very painful death, this is where assisted suicide or assisted death or whatever it is, suicide is taking one's own life at the end of the day, and this is just someone doing it as to avoid excessive suffering. People who would be allowed to this would just be those with critical conditions or those who go through extreme hardship upon death, in reality only. And that's why, when I look at the other two, you understand why the fear-mongering they put out is really over the top and not deserving a place in public discourse. Because the right to life and the right to death is equal. Much like the right to and from religion, much like the right to and not to have abortion. These are all civil rights which everyone should have. And to forbid one or the other in these critical regards about birth, life, and death is to potentially force someone then into excessive hardship. Which one to start with? Let's start off here. Okay, here we go. This is one my point I was going to go through now. Religion. Religion is now the issue. It says here, the Archbishop of South Sydney, who has circulated a document in which gives 8 reasons why Christians need to make their views known on voluntary euthanasia bill, recently introduced in Parliament by PM Alex. Sydney Archbishop Kanisha Rafael added his voice to plea on Twitter episodes, urging Christians to submit their views on clickable online questionnaire set up by New South Wales Legislative Council, part of its inquiry into the bill after parliamentary debate was suspended in October. He posted, I'm urging people of Christian faith to speak up against the assisted suicide bill, which fundamentally changes the doctor-patient relationship and our culture. It's supremely naive to think that if you don't choose it, it won't affect you. That's where the scapegoats begin. Quite literally speaking. Would it change the doctor-patient relationship? No, not really. Because if you just got a normal condition or need a normal catch-up, will it affect that? No. Will it only affect those who have chronic illness or are suffering excessively? Yes. You might give them a chance to have a nice, peaceful death. As all it does really is it's a chemical injection. It's essentially like a kill switch in which shuts down the body, which is a blessing for some who have excessive hardships in life. Because to die a horrible death is a worse fate. There is other forms actually going on in the medical stuff as is, because sometimes if someone's on death bay anyway, doctors and medical staff slowly reduce the amount of stuff going into the body anyway till the body dies. That's already a practice in place. So euthanasia in this context is nothing that really make that significant. This is where it's dogmatism overriding truth and what is needed, as it said here. If suicide means the intentional ending of one's life, it's hard to describe what this bill is doing in any other terms. Well, yes, it's ending a life. It's a mercy death. It's a death where we can be at peace. And here it comes, the fetishization. We are no longer saying that all human life is precious, and we will strive to encourage people to stay alive as long as possibly can. That for some can work, that for others won't work. And here's a thing, another thing actually I find weird about those who are against euthanasia is they seem to think that it's a death switch in which the government will just nuke everyone that opposes them, that it will be a automatic kill switch, which is wrong, because it's done under the strictest of conditions. The person who actually agrees to it has to be mentally fit in the first place. And doctors have to agree that it is the best opportunity. It said after, well, it sounds lovely. Who wouldn't want to die dignity? It's actually sending an entirely wrong message, which is when a person dies because of physical incapability, they're no longer dying of dignity. That's, again, a warping of judgment. And I want to say, no, the person still has their intrinsic dignity before God. And this is where I have an issue with religion in part. I can go to it later, actually. I won't go to it much. Now here, I'm just going to cover these two things, and move on. Whether or not they're still a valuing, contributing member of society who is fully in control of body functions or not. The dignity is not dependent on our autonomy and ourselves. And that is a huge yikes moment right there. And then here we have Catholic Health Australia has stepped up opposition to New South Wales assisted dying legislation with a campaign calling for better access to palliative care instead of dying. Alas, what I was saying before, palliative care where the drops slowly dwindle down until there's nothing and you die. It's a slow process in which the body shuts down. And it's natural for everyone to hit that state anyway. But the point is, for some people, it's just too much agony going through palliative care or even living up to palliative care. You can read the rest of this yourself. I'll link it in the description. The point of this is, at the end of the day, the best and most humane path is allowing euthanasia and allowing assisted suicide in this respect. If you do not, and you oppose, you are an enemy of those who want to die with dignity. And by opposing dignity in death, you are opposing life itself.